You will often see people on Twitter complain about having weddings in the fall because it means they can't watch football and stuff like that. Well, I am here, dear listener, to tell you that fall weddings are actually the best because they prevented me from playing my typical DFS volume yesterday, and that saved me a lot of money because my core basically all got hurt. So thank you, Max and Emily, for getting married during the fall and saving me a whole lot of money this past week. We're going to recap week 7, talk about those injuries, what they mean, Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers, and get you set for week number 8, looking at the main slate salaries on FanDuel.com. Welcome on into the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast, powered by numberFire. That's right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network and numberFire.com. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberFire.com. Joined here, as always, by Brandon Gadula. He is the senior managing editor of numberFire.com. And Brandon, you always say that friends are bad and, socializing is bad. I, again, have a counterpoint in all of this. So what do you have to say to my scathing rebuttal to your no friends argument?
I feel kind of put on the spot here. I wasn't expecting fall wedding slander. I had a winter wedding in December, so it's kind of, comparable where it's still within football season. But I mean, I look, if you want to do friend stuff and have a bunch of friends and be social, good for you. But it's not for everyone, and that should be okay.
The non-socializing part, yes, you are right. But I think we need more fall weddings to save me from bad decisions. So I still played my typical, I got in the high dollar contest that I like. And my favorite single entry tournament this week had Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I was driving and I had my phone open for navigation, happened to look over when a message was coming in from either you or JJ, I can't recall. And it said Amon-Ra St. Brown to the 10. And I was like, good. I don't need to check my lineups when I get to a rest stop. I could just let these burn to the ground. I had Amon-Ra St. Brown in that lineup. I had DK Metcalf in that lineup. I had Breece Hall in that lineup.
Did you have Michael Gallup as well?
No, Michael Williams played most of the game. Yeah. See, I think all of my plays were actually okay from a process perspective. They just all got hurt in that one.
Hey, baby, that's how it always goes. It was always the right play, but
yeah,
it doesn't always work out.
No, Michael Gallup was not the right play. I did use him quite a bit. He just wasn't in that lineup. I happened to get lucky in that one specific lineup with that.
I think we'll talk about the Cowboys a little bit. They were pretty run heavy, simply because the other team couldn't move the ball.
Yeah.
So they didn't have to throw it a lot. So,
and because Amon-Ra St. Brown got hurt, which ruined everything. So.
And DeAndre Swift didn't play. So
yeah, we're gonna blame this on them. It's not us. I don't know. It's just it's rough when all these injuries happen like this. And it could be oh yeah, I got them all out of the way in 1 week, but that's not how NFL works. So we're gonna break down what they mean and try to at least make the best of it. We'll try to talk about what it means going forward for NFL DFS and more excitedly, Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. NBA is back, which means Tom Vecchio has you covered every weekday with the Daily ISO breaking down that day's NBA DFS slate. Get that by subscribing to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcast. Speaking of the NBA, season is now underway, and it's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers getting no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's to $1,000 back in free bets if your first bet doesn't win. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to point spreads to player props. You can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. Plus, with live betting, you'll get updated odds on games that have already started. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, secure, and super easy to use. So download FanDuel today to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Make every moment more this season with FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus in select states. First online real money wager only. Refund issued as non-withdrawable free bets that expire in 14 days. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. In Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text next step to 53342. In Connecticut, 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat. In Indiana, 1-800-9-WITH-IT. In Kansas, 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com. In Louisiana, 1-877-770-STOP. In New York, 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Tennessee, call the red line at 1-800-889-9789. In Wyoming, 1-800-522-4700 or in West Virginia, 1-800-GAMBLER.net. Now, it's a pretty grim day, so let's start things off on a fun note. Let's talk about Christian McCaffrey going to the 49ers as our headline here from week number 7. Traded to the 49ers on Thursday night, made his debut on Sunday. He was active, played 29% of the snaps, finished with 8 carries and 2 targets and 62 yards, which is more than a lot of running backs got on Sunday, despite playing a 29% snap rate. I think that, like, from a football fan perspective, I'm pretty jazzed to watch this because McCaffrey in that scheme should be pretty fun. It is a team that should be in games pretty often when they're not facing Patrick Mahomes. So I'm stoked about McCaffrey. I think this is going to be a really good situation for him in DFS. But I want to get your read on not just McCaffrey, but also Deebo Samuel, the rest of this 49ers offense now with a new fun toy in town.
Yeah, so I mean, we're going to look at the stat line and say, like, okay, what do we do with this? We got to do a lot of extrapolation. I think he ended with a 29% snap rate, somewhere in there. I don't think. Did you say that? He did.
Twice.
Yeah, he did.
Twice.
All right.
Yeah.
That's my fault. I was pulling up his first half snap rate because I thought it was in the note sheet, but someone removed it. And I wanted to make sure that I had it right.
Well, it was like 51%, but they were down, so I deleted it because it wasn't relevant. So
I think that playing 51% of the snaps in your first
I don't care what he did in the first game. I want to talk broadly. It doesn't matter what he played in the first game. He's going to play a lot in the second game. Who cares?
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a good sign that he played that much, without knowing the playbook. I thought it was very promising. And I think that would just be a point to be able to make and say, like, there's not going to be a backfield like committee, even though it might have seemed like, okay, Jim's shaking his head for anyone not listening or watching. But
how dumb would you have to be to use some dusty dust ball over Christian McCaffrey?
I just wanted to point out, Jim, that the second half should not be indicative of anything.
Okay, go ahead.
That's all. We're off to a great start here today. So you're asking me about, like, Deebo and the rest of the offense. But
also McCaffrey. I want to hear you read on him too. I'm just going to mute myself. Go ahead.
Okay, so Christian McCaffrey, he is going to be a great play every week because he actually has assets around him to help them move the ball. It's a big, like, overall offensive upgrade. I don't know how much of a specific QB upgrade it is. Jimmy still has me a little bit concerned that they won't necessarily maximize the output and the opportunity here. But I considered Christian McCaffrey within the Panthers offense, even at elevated salaries. I'm going to do it again with the 49ers. He could be back. And again, he's going to be able to put up tons of yardage with all this green space in front of him that he didn't really have for the Panthers. No issues there, not even because of the 29% snap rate, which is just kind of the point I was talking around earlier. I do think it negatively impacts the predictability of the 3 pass catchers. George Kittle seems to be getting healthier. That's fun. He is one of the most fun players to watch in the NFL. For like 3 straight years, he led the NFL in, like, yards after the catch. But now we have 4 legitimate assets tied to a quarterback who is more of a game manager and can kind of kill drives with poor decision-making and bad awareness. So I want to make sure that I'm a little bit, reeled in on the expectations for everyone other than McCaffrey. But McCaffrey seems like he'd be the safest bet week in, week out to produce for this team.
If you had to name a salary for McCaffrey next week, I think he'll be fully integrated by then, personally. I think that he'll be good to go. So they're facing the Rams. It's a low total because the Rams are the Rams right now. And Jimmy's Jimmy. I think it should have a 9 in front of it personally, as salary for next week. What about you?
Yeah, this might sound low, but I was thinking 9,000 because I think that would encapture the ceiling that we're dealing with McCaffrey, but also some of the uncertainty around his workload. There still might be some packages where they try to work in someone else. I don't know if he's going to be like a 90% snap rate guy in his second week with the team.
Right.
Which again is why I thought the 50% snap rate in the first half was telling that they tried to get him out there as much as they could. But once they really had to implement their offense, he was scaled back. So I don't know if it's going to be pure 90% level, but I think a 9,000 salary would sort of account for both of those situations.
I think 9 should be the minimum.
Yeah.
For him. I think that if you said 92, I'd be like, yeah, that sounds about right. And I could get behind that. But he is not there, I don't think. He is $8,500. So I feel like that's right down territory, right?
It's close to it.
It's a tough matchup. The Rams are very good against the rush. They've had their issues defensively this year, but they're pretty good against the rush. I just don't know how much I care, given the scheme, given the player, given situation.
Yeah. So again, if we look at just the implied team total, FanDuel Sportsbook has that total at 41.5. San Francisco favored by 1.5. So total around 21-ish, give or take. I can't do that math in my head, but I'm sure Jim
21.25. Oh no, sorry, it's 41.5. So the total's gone up a point or a half point. So
okay,
people are taking it.
So
21.5.
Okay, so I'm not saying that this is the same situation, but and the Panthers probably haven't had really a total quite that high, but it's not that drastically different. So I still want to make sure that I'm not just being careless with my exposure levels, but he's a write down. I don't think he's a lock button.
No, I agree with that. Yeah, I think that, it's their total is 6 points higher than what the Panthers was before he got traded.
Right, but it's not 27, and there
still
could be
better.
Touchdown equity concerns with the other assets that they do have.
Sure, that's totally fine. What about Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle? Like you said, there's more uncertainty there. Does that make them where you need to see pretty drastic salary reductions to buy into them? Because I think that's not drastic, maybe, but I have a hard time getting them in general. It's going to make it harder for me to get there now.
So I think Kittle was 66 this week.
Whew.
I think I didn't play him. I wasn't that interested in him with his role being what it had been. Kind of burned me with those 9 targets. But again, we talked about the 49ers being willing to throw the ball when they're trailing. We talked about that last week. And the volume was up again for those guys. So if Kittle gets above 7,000, I think I'm going to have a hard time.
He's 69. So, yeah. That's a little bit high, I think, still.
It's a bit high.
Yeah.
Debo,
that's not as egregious, though, as Brandon Ayuk, who was 58 last week and is now $6,700. Why? I like Ayuk, but that is not a salary that is. He's at 80 yards in back-to-back games, which is good.
Double targets.
Both those were pretty negative scripts, despite facing Atlanta. That seems really high for him. Debo's 73. I think that's appropriate. I think it's not a value, but that's appropriate.
So it's going to be weird because I think, that's fair. But Debo's going to be the biggest loser in terms of why we like Debo, which is the handful of carries a game. I think that's going to be. He'll still get. I think he had one this week. It's just not going to help him from a rushing standpoint. So overall, arrows up.
Yeah.
And I just got to ask, if we have 4 assets tied to Jimmy Garoppolo, could we ever consider rostering Jimmy Garoppolo?
No. Okay. Not from a DFS perspective, but from a mental health perspective, I want to be happy on Sundays. I don't want to root for Jimmy Garoppolo.
I just need to flag that
my betting model told me to bet them this week, and I said, no. How dare you?
I just need to point out that we're talking about 4 players, not Ayuk necessarily because the salary's up, but 4 guys that we would really take a long look at and have zero interest in a quarterback tied to them at 7,100. That makes me feel less confident in those skill position players, though.
I'd rather be less confident in the skill players than talk myself into Garoppolo. If
Right.
it's one or the other, I'd rather skew that way personally. Yeah. And like I'm pretty skeptical of the pass catchers outside of McCaffrey too. So McCaffrey at 85 is a guy we'll talk about plenty Thursday, I hope, and I assume. The rest of the passing offense, I think, is a bit oversalaried for the most part. Now let's bring things down. Talk about some injuries from this week. DK Metcalf suffered a knee injury. He was quickly ruled out for the game. Pete Carroll said the x-rays were negative, but he's getting an MRI on Monday. It sounds like it might be a bone bruise, which I think would be a good thing in terms of like relative to what it could have been, given how quickly he was ruled out. Tyler Lockett, eight targets while playing through a hamstring injury. Marquise Goodwin had 5 targets. 2 were deep. He also scored twice and did a backflip on their kneel down, which is cool. Big bump up in value for that. I would downgrade the offense if Metcalf misses time because he and Lockett are kind of like key catalysts. And like, I love Geno and what he's been doing. And he played well after Metcalf got hurt, but like, that's a big piece to lose. Despite that, though, we talk a lot about how like if an offense loses a key piece, you downgrade everyone because the offense may be less efficient. I still think I'd bump up Lockett in terms of volume. I'd feel maybe consider Goodwin. And Kenneth Walker, I wouldn't worry about him too much, despite the fact he is a kind of a rush-only back. I still feel like if you take Metcalf out, although I downgrade Geno, I don't think I downgrade to the point where I get worried about Lockett and Walker, and I might consider Goodwin. Where are you at in this offense if we assume Metcalf misses, let's say, at least week 8?
Yeah, so I'm going to start with Walker because I think he's just the most interesting. Mm-hmm. The big knock on Kenneth Walker coming out of college was that he didn't have receiving work. And you could look at his past, 3 games, but like 2 games really. He's had 0. He didn't have any targets this week. He had 3 the week before, none before that. So he's either had 3 targets or 1 or 0 in 3 games apiece. So like it's either been there or it hasn't been. I just want to point out that he did run 15 routes, 52% of the routes this week. That is very telling to me that we can tilt about DJ Dallas getting targets and snaps all we want, but the role's still good, even though the targets weren't there. Yeah. Obviously, we want to see like 6+ targets. That'd be fantastic, but like it's not as bad as it looks in terms of the workload. He's also just very, very good at running the football, and that matters. Mm-hmm. So I'm in on Walker regardless of Metcalf because, as we talked about last week, like team totals don't matter as much for running backs. They can overcome that a bit. So I'm all in on Walker still. As for the pass catchers, yeah, Tyler Lockett should have added volume, but I think he's going to get a lot more of the attention. His ADOT this past week was 5.2. They might be trying to bracket him if there's no Metcalf to stretch the field, and that could spread things out. We have seen Geno Smith the past 2 games kind of spread things out a bit more. I know in week 6, we both loved Metcalf and Lockett, and they just kind of threw it to other guys. So it could be a defensive scheme situation that other teams know that they just got to take out Metcalf and Lockett. So I think it'd be a frustrating roster with Lockett because he could get sort of erased if the team just sells out to stop him. But I don't think that we could really hate on playing Tyler Lockett in the right game scripts.
So give me a salary on Walker for week 8 that gets the Giants at home as 2.5-point favorites.
Pretty decent total, 46.5. Workload itself probably worth like 82.
I'd probably go closer to 8,000, I guess, maybe 78, just because I do want more passing game work. But like, he's so good that if you told me he were 85, I wouldn't like balk at it. He's 84. I still think like he's in play there. It's just like it's getting up there where he's no longer a value, which is fine. He can still be in play.
But I mean, we know 2 salaries for sure. We know Christian McCaffrey at 85 and Kenneth Walker at 84.
I prefer McCaffrey.
I think I would too.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Lockett next week is 76. I think he got a bump as a result of the Metcalf injury. That's again, I think it's appropriate because like he's probably gonna get fed. He's had good yardage upside this year. Typically had a good floor. My hope would be that he gets some more practice this week, and that would allow him to be a better option going forward. Marquise Goodwin is 56. In this game with Metcalf leaving early, he ran around on 21 out of 27 dropbacks, I believe, that or 32 dropbacks.
72%.
Yeah, so 20,
right.
21 out of 29. That's not bad. He's played pretty well this year. Like, I keep like getting surprised whenever I like log his target numbers. I'm like, he's still kicking around. So I think 56, I would consider him if there were no Metcalf, at least.
Yeah, I mean, look, you want guys to play above expectation and be good. I just will flag 30% catch rate over expected this week, 2 touchdowns. It's going to take a pretty concentrated like target boost of like a confident boost, and say like if we get good with 5 targets, again, I'm going to be disappointed. I think if I can sit back and say like, no, there's going to be a legitimate boost for him, then I can be open to it. If it's just the same role as he had this week, he just overperformed on it and had 2 touchdowns. So I don't want to chase that. So I got to think about whether I would really bump him up or assume that they'll just kind of spread it out to other guys.
Yeah, I mean, like from a share perspective, it wasn't as bad because they were ahead.
Yeah.
And so like they could run, and Kenneth Walker's busting off long runs. Hard to get a lot of passing game volume when he's doing that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be ecstatic to use him at 56, but I think he'd be on the table at least, be in the consideration set there. So hopefully Metcalf's okay because I love him and I want to be healthy. But I think Lockett would be in play and Walker would still be fine. Just their salaries have finally caught up to how good the Seahawks are. Also, Seahawks money line. Let's go, baby. The Jets fear that Breece Hall suffered a torn ACL, will miss the rest of the year. Michael Carter runner playing 76% of the snaps in week 7 with Hall going down. Ty Johnson played 13%. Carter had 13 carries and 2 targets. He turned that into 74 yards. We've seen him get a solid workload in the past, but they also took Breece Hall early in the draft for a reason. And that was to not use Michael Carter as much. You look at the efficiency stats this year, because I was trying to like update like my priors for the Jets with no Breece Hall. It was upsetting to look at how much better Hall has been than Carter this year. So how will you view Carter in DFS with Hall being out?
Definitely not like a 1v1 replacement. Like it's not like whatever if you liked Breece Hall, you should like Michael Carter. It's not the same. Hall was averaging 1.41 rushing yards over expectation per carry. Carter at a negative 0.64. That's tough. Rushing success rate about 8 percentage points better for Hall as well. Just more explosive. He had downfield work. His ADOT was 4.4 for Carter, negative 0.4. So more traditional running back work. I mean, Michael Carter can see. It wouldn't surprise me if like 1 or 2 games out of this year, he gets to like 8 or 10 targets in a game if they're like really trailing. I think that's within his range of outcomes, but it's a big downgrade. This offense has a lot of issues. Elijah Moore is unhappy. I know that the team's doing well overall relative to expectation, but yeah, this is if I liked Hall at 76 within this offense, I think the best I could probably do for Carter is like 64.
I thought 67, just because I think that he will probably get about a 70% snap rate if I had to guess. And like on a team that's playing really good defense, they want to be run heavy when they can. I think they'll be less run heavy now with no Hall because they're not as good at it. Like, I mean, if he's averaging like 0.22 net expected points per carry, which I think is where he was at, like, why wouldn't you run the football? Like, I would do the same thing. Like,
that's more efficient than a lot of passing.
Yeah.
Like, again, analytics doesn't hate rushing. It hates inefficient rushing. Like,
Breece Hall is not an inefficient rusher. So
no.
It's a bummer. I also clicked role changes, not injuries, on the scroll on the bottom. Anyway, there we go. I'm not sure why I did that. Anyway, Michael Carter is 66. So, right between us. I think that's about right. I don't think he's a write down. I think he's a consideration at that number, which is fine.
They're hosting the Patriots. The Patriots will be on a short week.
Really good defense.
I start to hate divisional games the longer into the season we get to. I probably won't end up on Carter, but I would probably assume Carter will be an optimizer favorite this week.
Yeah, I think he does kind of look like that. Patriots rush defense, not as good as their pass defense, but still, like, it's just not going to be. I think he's fine. He's a consideration there, but I'm not enthusiastic about it. Same team, more minor for the Jets. Corey Davis reportedly has a sprained MCL. probably going to lead to missed time. Elijah Moore was inactive this week after a trade request, but Tyler Conklin led the team with 6 out of 26 targets. Garrett Wilson at 5. So we're taking Davis out of the equation potentially here. I'm assuming they'll add more back in. And they might be a bit more pass heavy with no Breece Hall. I still don't think that's enough to get me to be enthusiastic about any Jets pass catchers. What about you?
No, this is another spot where it's like, if you take good players off the field, there's going to be more opportunity, but that reduces efficiency, that reduces your chances of scoring. And until we like revamp fantasy football scoring, a lot of points come from touchdowns. So you need teams who can score multiple touchdowns in a game, especially with this team where like they're still going to be a bit spread out. It's not like Garrett Wilson's going to step into like a 35% target share.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe he could, but it's not something that you're just like penciling in. So
yeah. And it does scare, like, it is kind of scary from an efficiency perspective too, because Zach Wilson's like best 2 targets from an efficiency perspective this year have been Corey Davis and Breece Hall. Like he's had the most success targeting those guys versus other guys. He's been okay with Carter too, but like that's pretty scary for the offense, scary for the Jets going forward to lose those 2 guys. But I don't think there's enough here to be super in on the passing game. Mike Williams suffered an ankle injury and he wasn't putting much weight on it in the locker room. They got a bye this week, which may help, but it seemed like probably it could be a bad one for Mike Williams to miss some time. They did get Keenan Allen back. He didn't, I don't think, play at all in the second half. Just 2 targets, playing on the snap count there. I think the big thing here, even with Allen back, may be Austin Eckler. He had 12 targets, 127 yards in scrimmage in this game. His red zone role is still not good, but it's also not bad. He played 77% of the snaps. So with the passing offense kind of in flux and Eckler's role getting better, if we assume Williams misses time, should we just kind of embrace him coming out of the bye and just be like okay with him once again?
Yeah. He keeps scoring, and for some reason I look at that as a negative for him, whereas with other guys I think I'd probably view it as a positive. He does have I think the real change for me is that the targets have been so good. I know it's elevated volume the past 2 games with 16 and 12 targets, which is a 27% target share, which is pretty nuts, but that's on a 61% route rate. Now on the full season, Eckler leads all running backs with a 20.6% target share. Kamara is at a 20.2%, and nobody else is above 17 or above 18%. If I don't include Christian McCaffrey because he switched teams there, like I think I've been too hard on Eckler.
Yeah.
And the issue though is that he's going to come back after still having scored a bunch of touchdowns. He's going to be in the mid 9,000 range, if not higher. It's really hard to find enough value this year to build around those guys like we have been able to do in the past.
Yeah, I think that's probably the key rebuttal to it is salary. And like, if we're talking about Eckler with an improved outlook on him versus like a McCaffrey, like if he were on this slate, I'd still choose McCaffrey. So although I'm bumping Eckler up, I think I still don't know if I'd view him above a Saquon Barkley, or maybe I should, I don't know, because the team, but like relative to Saquon Barkley, relative to McCaffrey, I still feel like I'd lean towards those guys, despite bumping up my view of Eckler right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, Eckler was like I think he was like 84 in week 1.
Yeah.
And we were just out. And he had not the best start by any means, but now it just feels like this won't make any sense to anybody, but I was just thinking about like it seems like when teams play the Chargers, there's like a big wall in front of the like on the goal line, and the only like shapes that are cut out are just like little Austin Eckler shaped like, and he's the only one who can like score. It feels like everyone else can't score anymore for this team, and when that's the case, I should feel like afraid of missing out on those games. But
if the workload aligned with the output, I think it'd be one thing. But it like he's like his red zone role is getting better, but it's still not, like I said, it's not good. So the touchdowns, I understand why you're hesitant around that. I think it makes sense. Amon-Ra St. Brown left after just 10 snaps due to a concussion. The Lions still did not have DeAndre Swift. So without two key target earners, but still nobody in particular benefited here. Khalif Raymond had 6 targets for 75 yards. No. TJ Hawkinson had 5 for 48. So St. Brown, we're not really sure what the timeline will be because all concussions are different. If St. Brown were to miss time again, would you just boost up Hawkinson? Would you consider any of the other pass catchers here? Because DJ Chark is also on IR right now.
I looked into Raymond. I think that in like if I need to, I could maybe get there. Who do they play next week? They play the Dolphins.
It's a good game.
Like I think you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you want to stack up the Dolphins and like refuse to consider Khalif Raymond, who could, 75 yards. Let's say he scored. I'm assuming his salary is going to be just in the generic like mid 5,000 range. I think you could do worse than that. Hawkinson makes more sense to be that guy, but outside of his one eruption game, it's
no more than 7 targets in any game outside of that one.
No more than 7 targets. A max. So his 48 yards this week were his best aside from the 179 he put up against the Seahawks. So I think that's a bit overstated. We should get DeAndre Swift back, hopefully by next week. I think that's the real key. But how low would Raymond's salary need to be for you to consider him in, mini stacks? Because I don't know if we'll get to Tua or Goff, depending on what the slate looks like. Maybe,
I don't think Raymond's the key guy I'd want to go to. So I think that honestly, I want to check out Josh Reynolds' practice reports this week because we saw last year that Goff and Reynolds have a very good rapport. And it led to big output there. Reynolds ran a lot of routes this week, but he didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. It was limited Friday. Led to just 2 targets. What?
Okay, what are you? I don't know. Are you done with the Reynolds?
No.
Okay.
I was gonna say if he gets in more practice next week, and I can feel good about him, I would consider him.
Okay. What salary would you be willing to roster Reynolds at?
Probably 55, 56.
Okay, because you're gonna have to go up 1,000 because he's 65.
Okay. What? Why? I guess he had
Raymond's 56.
I don't care. Reynolds had 96, 81, 92 yards. So he was actually producing on the targets he was getting. So I kind of get it, but also my goodness. What are we doing here? What's Swift? Maybe I could just do that instead. So Swift is 75. Hawkinson is 63. I feel like we just go Hawkinson and say F it. I think we just need to do that.
Swift. You said 75?
Yeah. I would use Swift too, but I think I'd rather use Hawkinson than Reynolds at that outrageous salary.
I think so too. I will probably still be fairly open. Assuming Tyreek Hill's 89, I'll consider Khalif Raymond so that I don't have to not have any Tyreek Hill exposure.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill's 87. He should be. That's fine. David Njoku left early with an ankle injury. He finished the day with a team high 7 targets and 71 yards because he's the best. I love David Njoku, so this makes me very sad. Pharaoh Brown also got hurt for, I think, the second time this year. Got hurt when he was at Houston, I believe. Harrison Bryant is kind of the one healthy tight end on this roster. We know how much the Browns love tight ends. The problem is we have to use guys on the Browns, and I don't want to do that. So they're on Monday night. But what would your view of this pass catching core be if Njoku missed time?
Harrison Bryant's he's a good prospect.
Yeah.
This past week, 47% route rate. I'm not saying he would take over the Njoku role exactly, but if this were a main slate thing and he were below 5,000, I would definitely take a long look
for sure.
At him. That's kind of where I am with Bryant. like Amari Cooper at times has been truly featured in this offense, but not always. And actually, like Donovan Peoples-Jones is he's got some like giddy up, but
Donovan People's champion.
There was a lot of overperforming in this game from this team too. Not from a touchdown standpoint, but just yardage. So
Yeah.
If they were on the main slate, I would say just Bryant if he was a true value.
Yep, yeah, I agree with that. Russell Gage had a hamstring injury. He played about 61% of the snaps, and despite that, no receiver other than Mike Evans and Chris Godwin had more than 5 targets. Evans had 15. Godwin had 13. There may not be an obvious replacement for Gage, and this offense is struggling right now. So, what's your view of the Bucs offense if Gage were to miss time?
Well, my Bucks, based
I
on
think
my new
that hat
hat,
is cursed.
yeah. Well, they were struggling before I got this. Also, I'm not a Bucks fan. I'm not a fan of any team. I just like hats. Just want to make that clear. I just feel weird because I have a Ravens hat I like, but I try not to wear it on the NFL show because I don't want to be.
That was a bobble hat, like our head-to-head thing. I owed you a hat because you won, and I bought it from like the NFL team store. And now I think I'm a Ravens fan. I just keep getting emails, and I should unsubscribe, but I'm very lazy and refuse to. So I think I'm a Ravens fan. I'm now going to get Bucks and emails and stuff.
Well, speaking of the Ravens and Bucks, they're
They
both off
Thursday.
the main slate. They play Thursday. My two, the teams I just adore. But I think it's very easy to be down on the Bucks offense, and I get it. They're underperforming a lot based on whatever your baseline expectation of the Bucks is. This has to be lower than it. But in my model, which kind of looks at like expected points, they're third worst in underperformance based on actual points per play and expected points per play. Mike Evans dropped a touchdown that I could have caught, and with the lead he had on the defenders, I probably could have. I probably wouldn't even have been run down. So like, you don't want to look at one play and be like, oh, this would have changed everything, but this team is kind of hanging on by a thread to begin with, it seems like, on the sidelines. And so a drop touchdown like that probably didn't lead to a whole lot of fun vibes on the sideline. At a certain point, that factors in. You can't just look at the analytics and say, like, here's exactly what we should expect. But if Evans and Godwin are going to just be featured, I'm okay with it. We like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett whenever they're getting 50% of the targets from kind of whichever quarterback play they're getting. We can make all the Tom Brady jokes we want, but I think that there's still enough there to target those guys. And I'm okay not looking at any other pass catchers.
Yeah, I think that's probably where I'm at as well. Cameron Brate, assuming that he's back at some point, would add one more wrench in there, but like, I don't think it matters enough. I think if they're just going to feature Evans and Godwin, I'll be fine going to those guys. I still think this offense is going to be okay long term based on some of the underlying stuff. But
any Lenny thoughts?
I mean, it's just a bad script. I think that kind of what it tells us is that Lenny is totally slanderous. And I don't mean it like he is this person, but there are some similarities between Lenny and Devin Singletary. We want to target them in tight scripts. I think that's kind of where I'd be at. Obviously, I'm not assuming a super negative script for the Bucs against the freaking Panthers as 13.5-point favorites, but I think that's something I would probably just bump him up a little bit in neutral scripts and stuff like that as a result.
Sounds good.
Allen Lazard left in the fourth quarter with a shoulder injury. Fourth quarter targets were pretty spread out. Aaron Jones, Sammy Watkins, Amari Rodgers had 3 trio. Robert Tonyan had 2. Romeo Dobbs had 1. Didn't catch it because he didn't catch anything on Sunday. Good. This offense is pretty bad right now, but if they were to lose Lazard with Randall Cobb on IR, would you go to any of their pass catchers at that point?
I think it would make me highest on Aaron Jones. He had a pretty sick touchdown catch. It just seems like he's capable of getting double-digit targets and just being a kind of like an old school David Johnson in a way, where it's like just line up out wide and we'll figure something out.
So we had this in roll changes. Let's just talk about it now. Because he had 10 targets in this game. I don't think he'd had more than 5 in a game yet this year. So I was like super disappointed with his pass catching role because they weren't using him the way I thought they might. And suddenly on Sunday, they did. 10 targets for Aaron Jones. His previous high was 5 back in week 1. His snap rate was in the 70s again for the second time in the past 3 games. And I kind of think they realize that they're just a better team when he's in the football field. We've seen in the past, this is not the case last year, but we've seen in the past where in the playoffs, they'd bump Aaron Jones' snap rate way up. It's like, hey, we saved this guy for the postseason, but they're 3-4 now, and they play the Bills as 10.5-point dogs next week. I don't think they can afford to conserve him anymore. So I feel like air was up. I know that there is potential for the bottom to fall out, and that's very much possible. I want to acknowledge that, but I think potential for a pretty good role. Name that salary in Aaron Jones as 10.5-point dogs on the road against Buffalo next week.
They are not on the main slate, but I can play
What?
along.
Oh.
That's Sunday night.
Oh.
Yeah, your classic Sunday night double-digit spread. But yeah,
should it be a double-digit spread? Just gonna let you know my bet slip on it from this morning.
So yeah, as you mentioned, Jones had between 3 and 5 targets in every game before this one when he got 10. Would love to see that for Kenneth Walker, by the way. Just get him 3 to 5, every game.
Take that.
But yeah, so if this were on the main slate, I would probably put Jones at like 76. I wanted to say 77, but I couldn't quite get there.
I thought 74, so around the same area. It's higher than he was this week, which is 68.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'd say bump him up. But his offense is rough.
What about the pass catchers, which is truly what you asked me, and then I just realized that I liked Aaron Jones out of all of them.
I mean, like, in theory, Dobbs should be fine, but he only has 7 deep targets the entire year, despite playing a pretty full role. And like, 2 of those were in week 1 before he had a full role. So since his role expanded, it's a 5-game sample now. He has 5 deep targets. It's kind of hard to do a lot as a receiver when that's the case. Now, Sammy Watkins did come off IR. He had 2 deep targets on Sunday. He had 4 overall. I know.
Lazard's ADOT was 3.8 this game. Dobbs 3.3. It was Watkins and Amari Rodgers getting the field stretching.
Amari Rodgers is like a running back. Why is he getting downfield targets? Like, I know he's not a running back, but he's shaped like one.
What was Aaron Rodgers? His ADOT was 5 this week. That's not good.
I don't get that.
I guess Washington can pressure. I don't know. I don't
know. Yeah, I don't know. I wish Aaron Jones were on the main slate. I am delighted those other jabronis are not. That's where I'm at right now, basically. Yeah. Mike Boone got ruled out for the game in the Broncos in the second half due to an ankle injury. He's been the passing game guy, so this actually does kind of matter. Melvin Gordon led with a 52% snap rate. He had 11 carries and 4 targets. He just turned that into 50 yards, though. Latavius Murray still played 37% of the snaps. So even if Boone misses time, I want no piece of this backfield. What about you?
Don't. Well, we got to keep in mind the quarterback situation.
No, we don't. We really don't.
Then all I'll say is Melvin Gordon did have a 53% route rate this week.
I don't care. Okay. What would his salary need to be? He's not on the main slate next week. How low would it need to be for you to be there?
Why are they not on the main slate?
They're in I almost said Jacksonville. They're in London. They're playing the Jags.
The London Jaguars.
The Yags.
Yes. Send over a nice 39.5 point over-under for them to enjoy. I think you need to be like 6,000.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'd need a little bit lower than that, but yeah, around there. After the Christian McCaffrey trade, the Panthers backfield split favored Deontay Foreman over Chuba Hubbard. Hubbard did get hurt in the fourth quarter. Foreman had a 54% snap rate. Hubbard played 46%. Foreman 15 carries and 2 targets. Hubbard had 9 carries and 3 targets. Typically, we're going to try to avoid backfield splits, especially if they are in a hideous offense, despite routing the Buccaneers. But if Hubbard were to miss time and it's just Foreman, would that be enough to make this backfield DFS relevant for you?
Probably not. They do play the Falcons next week, which in theory is gettable on the like.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what would you project for like a snap rate for Deontay Foreman if like Hubbard's out? Because I think that's the real key. Is it still like 60%? Is it
65,
like 85%? Like,
probably 65. I don't know.
If he had a 75% snap rate next week against the Falcons, what would you need his salary to be to roster that?
For a 75% snap rate, I
Like
would
getting into like
like
pretty strong territory snap rate.
66 still.
Yeah, he's 64. If the Falcons had anything, it could be a fun like mini stack to round out lineups.
Nope.
But they don't.
Yeah, neither team does. I think.
DJ Moore.
Nope.
He's back, baby.
No, he's not. He never. No.
I typed in D.J. For Moore. I didn't realize that because I haven't searched for him all year. I didn't realize.
You didn't realize he's an efficiency boy who refuses to have the periods like a man.
Yeah,
like a true alpha.
But I saw DJ Montgomery at 45, and I was like, oh, 45 sounds about right for DJ Moore. He's 62. I mean, his workload did get better, but I'm still not there.
Don't care. Yeah, I agree. Nico Collins went to the locker room with a groin injury. He was later ruled out. I talked up Nico Collins this week. Didn't use him. So, like, it's still, like, somehow cursed him despite not using him. Even with that, no Texans non-running back had more than 5 targets. Brandon Cooks had 5, but he's also the subject of some trade talks. Only one of those targets for him was deep. Philip Dorsett had a touchdown. Didn't know Philip Dorsett was in the league, to be fully honest. That was exciting. I like Brevin Jordan in general. He just returned from an injury this week and didn't have a full role. I don't feel like anyone really benefits here. I'm just going to pass over them, even Cooks, honestly. What about you?
Yeah, I didn't. Sometimes we come up with plays and the other person's not quite there. I wasn't quite there with the Nico Collins thing. That's not like a.
Well, I said they didn't want to use him because I wasn't sure about the upside.
Right. But I haven't looked into this receiving core at all.
Yeah.
I think the thing that I would just flag this week, and I don't know if we're going to talk about Dameon Pierce, is that his snap rate did fall to 52%.
It was Dario Gumbawala getting garbage time. That's the only reason.
Yeah. I just wanted to.
I wouldn't note it. It's not relevant.
117 yards, though.
Yeah, because he's best. He's the best. The rest of his team stinks. Let's dive into some role changes now and talk about the Cowboys with Dak Prescott being back. Prescott, just 25 attempts, but 8.3 yards per attempt, 207 yards, 0.23 passing net expected points per drop back. We got a good quarterback back. That's fun. Bad defense, but still played well. Lone touchdowns to Peyton Hendershot, of course. Noah Brown led with 7 targets. CeeDee Lamb had 6. Dalton Schultz had 5. Michael Gallup had 2. So the stuff was spread out and nobody really feasted, but Dak played decently well. Do you need to see more before you buy into this team in week 8 and beyond? Or was there enough there for you to feel like, okay, I can feel decently okay about these dudes?
If they played in a good game next week, I would say I saw enough efficiency wise and that the volume just wasn't there. They won 24-6.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a blowout game.
Yeah.
It was pretty close throughout. I think they just realized that the other team wasn't going to be able to move the ball without DeAndre Swift and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they just didn't really have to force Dak into a ton of dropbacks. They also were running the ball well enough. I think that had more to do with it. I like that the efficiency was there. So I would say if they played a good game next week, I would have seen enough. They're 10-point favorites against the Bears next week. We might see another run-heavy script.
Yep. So let's talk about that run-heavy script and who it may benefit, because Tony Pollard actually did outsnap Zeke Elliott 37-31. Zeke did miss some time. He was in the injury tank I looked at, came back in. So he wound up being okay. They split 8 red zone carries evenly. I think both guys had 4 out of 12 opportunities inside the red zone. I could be wrong. But so an increased snap rate for Pollard. That happened. Is it enough for you to take a look at him this week or no?
So I think that we'll see a lot of tweets about how Pollard finally outsnapped Zeke without the nuance that Elliott I thought got hurt pretty badly, but
Yeah.
but came back. If you look at just the backfield snaps, so if you exclude the snaps where Pollard was out wide, Pollard still did lead 32-30, so it was narrow, but I think that's actually more more notable for Zeke that it was still about 50-50 despite the fact that he left. I think this is probably still going to be 60-40, so I don't want to overreact to the in favor of Zeke like it has been. I think it goes back to what it was, so I don't want to overreact to the fact that Pollard on paper outsnapped Zeke. And I thought Zeke was viable last week a little bit. I thought the salary was too high, so I didn't quite get there. I don't really see this as a change. I think it's like a false change. Any thoughts?
I think it's a change. I'm not sure if it's big enough change, and it's just a slight difference from what you're saying.
So it's been 60-40. What do you think it will be now? 50-50?
It might be kind of close.
Okay.
Like in terms of like adjusted opportunities, it might be kind of close. So Pollard played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 snaps in the first quarter yesterday. That's a pretty good number. So 8 out of 37 total snaps from him were in the first quarter. That's pretty good. Did play a lot in the fourth quarter when they were ahead. So that could also be juking the stats a little bit to make him look better than it actually was. But again, that could happen next week too. He's 63. That's not low enough for me to be like, I'll take some speculative stabs. But I wouldn't be shocked if we keep seeing slowly getting a little bit better.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And look, they're favorites.
Yeah.
It might, based on how the season's been going, it might not be crazy that like Zeke just takes a week off if they're 10-point favorites.
Oh, baby. Rest up, baby. Just sit aside, Zeke.
I'm just saying.
If we get Pollard without Zeke, I'd go nuts.
That is pure speculation because Zeke came back in and played, but do they need to play?
Do they ever need to play? But anyway, yeah. Sorry. Pro Zeke in general, but I want a viable running back at 63 so badly. DeAndre Hopkins came back, and he was DeAndre Hopkins again. 14 targets, a 48% target share. The Cardinals only 31 dropbacks. Hopkins ran around on 28 of those dropbacks, meaning he had a target on half his routes. No Marquise Brown. He's on IR now. Hopkins should be pretty obvious wide receiver 1 going forward. Robbie Anderson's role should grow. Limited to six routes in his debut. So how high should it be on Hopkins? And does he change the way we view the Cardinals offense overall?
About as high as we can be on Hopkins. Mm-hmm. I think that his workload. So if I think of like workloads and target shares that I'd feel safest about week to week, it'd probably be Cooper Kupp. And I shouldn't have done this because now I'm not like thinking of all the receivers, but Hopkins might be second that I feel like safest with to get like.
Yeah, Jefferson has higher upside, but he's more volatile. So I think that's probably the right way to phrase it.
So like he's near the top already. I mean, I guess don't quote me on this, but like it feels like Tyreek Hill's target share is insane every single week.
Yeah, he had like 14 again last night.
But yeah, so Hill's been at it's been pretty safe. But I think Hopkins, like, there's no way that he's not involved. Yeah. And there were times where he was a little uncertain of like what to do, so he's still working his way back. And to get
it's not a complicated offense that is a tiny bit concerning.
But like to get it, there was at least one play in the red zone where they had to Kyler like audibled to a fade to Rondale Moore, which is not the guy you want to throw a fade to in the end zone when you have DeAndre Hopkins. But that looked like to be a direct result of Hopkins not knowing what was called necessarily. So look, Hopkins way up. I do think it helps. I think the real question here is like we've been frustrated with the Cardinals offense.
Yeah.
Does this change enough for us to want to be like, I'm back in on Kyler because he's got Hopkins we can go to? Or are we still a little bit hesitant?
So this week, they outperformed their expected passing efficiency per dropback by 0.08 based on the matchup. They were plus 0.08, which is their third time this year exceeding expectations. They were at expectations once. They were above average on the ground, and they were also above average on like late down success rate compared to expectations, whereas they've been below average in 5 out of their 7 games. So they did get a little bit better once you account for the matchup that they faced. I just don't want to feel too confident because I think that like they did some creative stuff with the way they used Hopkins too. Like they actually moved him around the formation, whereas previously he's been like just on one side. So like they did do some creative stuff to their credit. But like, I really hesitate. And the problem is they're in a really fun game next week. They get Minnesota. And like, I think I'll have to have some level of confidence in them. Does that extend beyond Hopkins? I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Feels like we're back to status quo with the Cardinals where it's like, okay, they're in a good game.
Yeah.
But they're in a good game.
Is it a good game?
On paper, it is, and then
of course, the one good game they have is not in the main slate last week. Just true fu across the board.
One note, just Rondale Moore did lead the team with 29 targets or 29 routes.
29 targets, 3 air yards.
Yeah, that'd be sick. Just the 2 targets. Salary's 55. I think if we're stacking up that game,
yeah,
yeah.
Maybe should I don't know, but like I would. Jonathan Taylor limited snap rate in his return, but he was heavily involved in the passing game specifically. Played on 35 snaps, 55%. He had 10 out of 16 running back carries for 58 yards, but also drew 8 targets. They weren't like Priest Hall targets, not creative targets, but 8 targets tied a career high for him. So did that up your confidence in JT, or are we still a bit hesitant because this offense is the worst it's ever existed?
Actually, I have a note on the Colts in philosophical changes. Should I bump it up here?
Sure, let's do it.
The Colts have been pass heavy the past 2 games. We thought maybe it was like injury related and script related, but you can kind of account for that. And their adjusted pace entering week 6 was 10th best. In the past 2 games, it has been the fastest. Their pass rate over expectation, so this helps account for everything. Minus 4 percentage points, which was 23rd entering the past 2 games, plus 8.1, which is 4th best. They're running no huddle. They're like the only team running legitimate no huddle.
And the game still produced 29 points.
But like, it's different. I mean, if you gave me Jonathan Taylor with passing game work, he's not Jonathan Taylor of old because he's not getting 25 carries and
I also worry about like explosives coming off a high ankle sprain. Like that's a little bit concerning to me too.
Yeah. But I think to say Jonathan Taylor for week 8 of 2022 is probably incomparable to anything else we've ever seen from Jonathan Taylor in the past.
Yeah, it's different in a couple ways, which is what you were saying. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm so hesitant with this offense because it sucks. It's so bad. Like they're doing the right things, but they're not good at them.
Yeah, it's like they're doing things like if we saw the Cardinals or like the Eagles being like, oh, they're running all this in the huddle, like they're throwing the ball, they're getting their running backs involved for like these easy dump offs for yardage. Like we'd love that, but I mean Taylor's 83 next week against the Commanders.
That's low enough where I'll probably get there.
You think you'll get there?
Yeah, I think so. Most likely.
Kenneth Walker at 84 or Taylor at 83? That's now that we know some of these salaries, we can.
Well, McCaffrey's way above both at 85. Right. If there's no DK, I might go Taylor. But if DK Metcalf is there to kind of cement the Seahawks as being like a still really good offense, I'd probably go Walker.
I could agree with that.
Maybe that's just trying to find it out. I don't know. Travis Etienne played a really good role for the Jaguars on Sunday. 82% snap rate, even after a costly fumble inside the 10 again. Some more red zone issues for Etienne. 14 carries and 5 targets, 119 yards and a touchdown. He had not played more than 54% of the snaps in a game before this, and James Robinson had no carries and 11 snaps. Doug Peterson said after the game that they needed to evaluate Robinson. He didn't specify what he meant by that. So I actually don't know what he was referring to, like if this is an injury thing or something else. But something happened, clearly. How trusting are you of this being a new role for ETN, given the lack of information we have right now?
Pretty trusting, because he's been creeping up. He's been like a bit of a mainstay in like the situations we're monitoring section of this show, and it's been creeping up. Was over 50% for 2 of the past 3 games, and then shot up to the 82% this week, as you mentioned. He also just looks good.
Yeah,
like he can break those long plays, which you want from a running back. Those are the guys who can kind of separate and make differences. He had 5 targets, but just 1 catch yesterday. So I think there's a lot of appeal for ETN. I think maybe, thankfully, they're not in the main slate, so I can see if it's really real or not.
Yeah.
But what
I wouldn't
salary?
be shocked if it is.
No, I mean, look,
he's had 100 yards in 3 straight games now, despite having before 2 of those being before as like role really expanded. So that's pretty good. I would say like 72-ish.
I think that's
fully
probably
convinced, but like, I'm interested, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, once you crack that 80% snap rate, that's like rare to find.
Yeah.
Like if you look at even just single games, like there's not a whole lot of those for running backs. So
it's interesting. We'll learn more about Robinson as week goes along, but it's interesting for sure. Less interesting is the Chiefs backfield. Isaiah Pacheco made headlines Sunday morning for a potential role change and did get better to a 31% snap rate. The blurb, not going to mention where this blurb came from, but the blurb said that Pacheco would start and his role would expand, and CEH would be in like the McKinnon role. McKinnon would get nothing effectively. McKinnon had a 40% snap rate to lead the team. Pacheco 31%, CEH 29%. CEH had 2 out of 8 red zone chances, and the others had 0. All 3 had exactly 8 adjusted opportunities. Again, it's the biggest middle finger. Are you willing to take preemptive swipes at Pacheco, or is this a situation where it's still a hold off until we see something noticeably change?
So I've been pretty tuned into this backfield for season-long purposes, and for there to be one guy here, we kind of need 2 guys to get hurt. Like even if one of them is just like Thanos and doesn't touch the field, it's still gonna be a split. The salary should be low in that like situation, but I don't think I can get to any of them until we know if there's 3 of them. There's none of them.
If Schefter reports it, I'll react.
You're just waiting the whole time to say that.
If Schefter reports it, I'll react. Until then, maybe Tom Pelissero. We'll see the trust list. The trust list is those 2 people. I'm going to put it at that. Gus Edwards made his return and scored twice, but still a committee for the Ravens. Nobody played more than 40% of the snaps. Gus led with 16 carries, just 1 target on 4 routes. Kind of very a Gus Edwards kind of line. Kenyon Drake, 11 carries, but turned it into 5 yards. A Kenyon Drake kind of line. Justice Hill had a key fumble. So are you trying to get ahead of this situation with Gus in his 2nd week back, or do you want to see it before you buy in?
I don't really have a whole lot of interest in Ravens running backs ever. There's too many of them. Also, the Ravens were uncharacteristically run heavy. You can run on the Browns. Mark Andrews wasn't 100%. This is the kind of the game that I thought might happen based on like the week 7 preview. It's like a gloat thing. It's just like that was within the range of outcomes. That
was before we knew that Andrews was actually hurt.
But like,
I think that actually did change things.
Sure, but you can run on the Browns, and that's just what they did. So I think that everything's elevated this week for the running backs, and I don't know if it'll be that way moving forward, especially whenever there's they're down 13 to the Bucks, because the Bucks are going to bounce back.
I don't know. I'm excited to watch that game. I'm very excited to have less action on that game than I would typically have on those 2 teams. The Panthers, obviously, they got rid of Robbie Anderson this week. We talked about the Deontay Foreman Chuba Hubbard situation. Let's talk about DJ Moore here. 10 targets, 48% target share. He had a season high in yards. That season high was still just 69. He ran every route. That was 23 routes. Terrace Marshall ran 22 of those 23 routes, but he had 3 targets. I still don't want to go here. Maybe you can disagree.
I I'm out.
Good.
Like this should have been this should have been like, okay, we're gonna have DJ Moore, Drake London mini stacks all day.
Yeah.
And I can't even touch either of them.
Yeah. It's bad, man. It's bad. Wan'Dale Robinson had a breakout role to start week 7. He finished with a team high 8 targets for 50 yards, but a bit more of that workload than the final box score showed because he had all that production in the first half before getting banged up again. Robinson played in the second half and still led the Giants in total routes, but didn't see any targets after halftime. Daniel Bellinger had switched into a big role last week and went to the hospital due to an eye injury, so hopefully he's okay, but could open up some volume there. But I think that Wan'Dale at least showed that he can earn targets and showed that even though he had a limited route role, they were going to get in the football. And it kind of, I think, like is like a this makes sense type of thing. Really good preseason reports for him. They don't have a lot cooking at pass catcher right now. Are you willing to go at Wan'Dale if we get confirmation that he's healthy in that good game against Seattle next week, or is it just Saquon?
The best part of all is that it's in a good game, and that's just the level of a lot of players. Like they're matchup dependent for DFS, and Wan'Dale is still one of those guys. There's a lot of reasons that things could bottom out, but based on how involved he was in the first like 22 minutes of that game, it was really interesting. If he is, full in practice, he's like good to go again. I think we got to be interested. Name me a salary for Wan'Dale next week.
Well, if Josh Reynolds is 66 or whatever, then
65.
Wan'Dale's probably 78. I think he needs to be in like the 56, 55 range for me.
He's 59. I would play him at 59 in that game.
I'd probably use him, but I'm not going to be enthusiastic about it.
I would, to cancel out the Tyler Lockett increase. I think that's viable.
I was going to look at Darius Slayton because I was like, okay, like we know he can get some downfield work and stuff like that. And he's like finally out of the doghouse and he's playing, but he's also 57. Like, why is every receiver $1,000 higher than they need to be? I'm upset. Like, come on.
Marcus Johnson.
Yeah, he's been starting for a while. Yeah. He hasn't done anything with it, so
no catch rate over expectation of minus 62%, which is fantastic.
These receiver salaries are the worst. I'm deeply troubled by this. Okay, let's go to situations to monitor from this week. What else did you note when looking at usages from this week?
Again, not like a role change, but Alvin Kamara, 9 targets. So he now has 7, 6, 9, and 9 targets in his past 4 games, even in a run-heavy offense. They might stick with Andy Dalton based on reports. I don't know if it's great, but either way, like Kamara is very involved, and I want to make sure that I'm not too low on Kamara moving forward. Maybe that one's obvious, but like he hasn't had like breakout games, and it's not quite as clear that he's got a great role. And those targets really add up, even on FanDuel, which is a half PPR site. We could get James Conner back for next week, but Eno Benjamin, 72% snap rate, 12 carries, 5 targets. It's a good role if he's the guy. That might be coming to an end, but it's noteworthy. In that game next week, we'll find him in the salary scroll.
87, I'm guessing.
Tyler Algier, 60% snap rate, basically pretty consistently in a run-heavy offense. No receiving work, doesn't matter. We talked about Juju Smith-Schuster's yardage last week. He went for $124 and a touchdown on 8 targets this week, along with 70 yards after the catch.
Broke some tackles again.
He's at a plus
Juju Smith-Yaxter.
He's at a plus 23% catch rate over expectation the past 2 games. About 51 yards per game over expected based on his receiving. Again, you want guys who overperform. This might be a bit too much. I don't know how to handle what they are in a bye. Just wanted to note that there's a little juice to Juju right now.
Juice Smith-Schuster.
Cade Otton, 10% target share without Cameron Brate, 5 targets. Pretty solid 68% route rate just in case Cameron Brate remains out. And then Foster Moreau, a 19% target share, also 5 targets, 68% route rate, so same as Cade Otton, in case Darren Waller remains out. So not quite as good as we've seen from those guys, but a little bit of a pulse.
19% from Moreau is not bad. I can.
Ooh. Yeah, well, we're not going to have Kelsey because they're on bye. Not going to have Andrews because they're on Thursday night.
Oh, buddy, a dumpster slate. I love it. So this is perking me up. If I don't have to worry about that stuff, dumpster slate. That's good. That helps. I want to know Raheem Mostert's usage. He played well. Like his usage was good too, but I think he played well, and I think that matters. Also, for him, I always worry about health. And you're like, will he get banged up? But they had him returning kicks, and it's like, oh, he's healthy. Like, not just healthy, he's healthy.
He played like 4 snaps last year, so
yeah. He's fresh. 16 carries and 5 targets for 109 yards. He now has multiple targets in 6 straight games. He has 100+ yards twice. I am warming up to him more and more, and he's on the map for me. They get Detroit next week. Name me that salary for Raheem Mostert.
In that matchup specifically, so you probably listed you didn't list the snap rate. 71%. Okay. It's been good. 71% route rate too, 5 targets.
He's played 70% of the snaps in 2 out of the past 3 games.
I feel like he's been a situation to monitor for a few weeks in a row now for us, between one of us. In that spot, 71.
I thought 68, so that's about right. He's 68.
Okay,
fine. I'll take that. I think that totally works.
That's a question. That's a write down with a question mark.
It's a write down in pencil.
Yeah,
I don't have a pencil. I don't have a pen either, but write down in pencil, I would say. If DeAndre Swift misses more time, I'm not using Jamal Williams. No. He played 44% of the snaps on Sunday. He had just 1 target, so the lack of passing game work stuck. They're letting Justin Jackson be the ball carrier every now and then. Not a ton of upside there unless he busts a big play, which he did in his first game, but I don't really want to go there. Also worth noting, Greg Dulcich had a nice role again. He had 9 targets, and 3 of those were deep on a 68% route rate. So once Russell is back, I'm going to use Greg Dulcich, and I hope he does not do a whole lot before then, because I've seen enough where I will buy into him, but I don't want his salary to go up. So chill out in London, Greg, and we'll talk to you after, I'm assuming, your buy later on. Let's go to philosophical changes for this week. And this isn't a shift, but I think we need to talk about the Falcons. Because they got down big on Sunday, a hyper negative script, but they still threw just 13 passes with 16 dropbacks. It was in part because they ran just 54 plays, but that's still 16 dropbacks on 54 plays when you were down by like 80. So name me a situation where you'd use Kyle Pitts or Drake London. Can you find one? Because I can't.
No, they are literally the Bears. They're the Bear. Like their raw pass rate, their pass rate over expectation.
Would you use Darnell Mooney in any situation? The answer is no. So you can't use Kyle Pitts or Drake London.
The issue is they're more efficient than the Bears, but that's it.
Yeah.
So no, there's really nothing that would get me to play them, because this would have been a great, script to want to play these guys and bring backs, and they won't throw the ball.
Nope. Other notes that you had, what else do you know when you're looking through pass rate over expectation and pace?
So I touched on the Colts. I think they're doing, I think that you put it the best way. They're doing interesting things, but
they're not doing it well.
Yeah. Green Bay was pass heavy. They lost, but they were within a score or leading until under 7 minutes left in the game. Their pass rate over expectation was 7.1% this week. It was about -1% for the season, so about even. Maybe they'll just go full air raid and just be like, all right, we're going to get Aaron Jones 10 targets. Aaron Rodgers is just going to throw the ball. And, we've seen like the Buccaneers do that kind of stuff.
Embrace the DGAF.
Just maybe that's what's coming. So I at least want to throw that out there, that wouldn't put me on Aaron Rodgers, but it would change at least the way that I view the offense more. And then the Cowboys, very balanced with Dak back, 47% pass rate. They did win big, but it was pretty close for most of the game. They were really fast as usual, which I think is stickier than the pass rate. So I feel like they're still going to move the ball or run a lot of plays whenever things are good. And the pass rate over expectation, just a -1.4%. So I feel good with Dak. and I would feel good about them next week. I just don't think they're going to have to do much because they play the Bears.
No, I agree with that for sure. Okay, let's go to our salary scroll for week 8. Let's pull up the main slate over on FanDuel.com. We'll go position by position and shout out salaries that stand out to us. Starting off at quarterback, what do you see there? Oh gosh.
Oh, goodness.
So the reason for our shock is because Jalen Hurts is the highest salary guy at 92. Makes total sense.
Yeah.
I can get behind that. Second is Kyler Murray at 82. He is the only other guy above 8,000 because Kirk Cousins is next up at 78.
So we're not going to have the tight ends, but we're going to have a similar situation at quarterback, which I'm much more okay with. I don't even know what the rest of the quarterback slate looks like, but I might play 100% Jalen Hurts based on this alone.
I don't know. That seems like a lot in a game that they might just coast against Pittsburgh. They're 10-point favorites.
But it's a battle of Pennsylvania, Jim.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Is it the Keystone State? Is that the word?
Yeah, even though it's a Commonwealth, but it's not a state.
Keystone Commonwealth?
It's the Keystone State, but
I hate that.
Like technically a Commonwealth.
I hate that. Hurts is the best quarterback here, but like
Dak is
one that stands out to me is Tua Tagovailoa, $7,700. We've seen upside from him at times this year. The offense was humming along early on in that game against Pittsburgh. They did settle down a bit later on. But that's a game we'll probably be pretty in on. He's 77. I think that's probably playable, right?
That was the name that jumped out to me
the
most in the 7,000 range.
There was one more that stood out, but it's depended on DK Metcalf's health, and that's Geno at 7,000. Didn't go super well this week, but like I think the pieces for that are still there. So if DK were good to go, I would at least consider Geno Smith at 7,000.
Yeah, I wish Dak was in a different game because Dak at 72 would be
for sure.
Would be fun. That's about it.
Matthew Stafford is $7,000, and I still don't want to use him.
Not against them. I mean, they're coming out of a bye.
I don't care. Yeah, I see nothing else.
So we're thinking probably a 3 to 4 quarterback slate.
It depends how you feel about Kyler, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I'll play Kyler.
He's an assumed yes for you?
For now.
Okay. Let's go to running back. Derrick Henry is 10,000. Makes total sense against the Texans, though. So I can't poo-poo that. That makes sense. I get it.
He's had 30 and 28 carries the past 2 games. He has at least 20 in all but one game. I'm not saying like these are amazing target numbers, but 3, 2, 5, 6 in his past 4.
He's done stuff with them too, because he's weirdly getting a superhuman in space is good for you.
I don't think I'm going to be able to get there.
Yeah.
Unless
I get it.
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs, 9,000. That makes sense. I think his role is worth that. He's had 150 yards in scrimmage in 3 straight games. There have only been 18 games this year where the running back has gotten 150 or more in total yards, and 3 of them are Jacobs in his past 3 games. Like, he's absurd. So again, it's kind of like Henry, where like that's an appropriate salary. I might not be able to get there, but it's appropriate and I understand it.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey is 85. Again, I still think that's kind of the key one for this week. Dalvin Cook is 82. We talked about his role change that he underwent. Okay, here's one. Alvin Kamara, 78. You talked about how the role wasn't necessarily getting better. It was just kind of like solidifying that it's a good role. And like 9 targets the past 2 games. He hasn't scored, but his red zone role is actually good.
Yeah.
Like, I think 78's low enough where I'm like, okay, I can get behind this.
Kamara's close to, I don't know. How confident can you be putting Kamara into a single entry, or not a single entry, but like a cash game lineup? Because I think he has to be like, I want to do it for him to be a write down.
Decently confident, personally.
Okay. Kamara or Swift? Let's assume Swift's full.
So he gets in a full practice. I think because, okay, this might feel weird given Taysom Hill's existence. I feel better about Kamara's red zone role than Swift's.
Me too.
So I go Kamara personally.
Yeah, I think that was a tiebreaker for me.
Okay. Damian Pierce is 73 against Tennessee. It's not bad for how good he's been.
Oh, Brees.
Brees.
Oh, no.
Mostert, I am getting higher and higher on as we go along at 68.
Yeah, I don't want to overlook Eno Benjamin at 7,000 just in case he's the guy again. In that game, that's appealing.
Michael Carter at 66. It's like, I might need saving somewhere. I don't really want to do it, but
I know you're not a Darrell Henderson guy.
I'm not going to.
Okay. He's 65. I just want to.
I don't care. He could be 25, as in like $25, not 2,500, and I wouldn't use him. Do not care.
Zeke, we like you. Maybe take a week off.
Oh yeah. It's like, what is this we? I think he's underrated, but yeah, I agree. Where he should chill out for a bit. He has a contusion on his right knee. I still have to go back and talk to the trainers. So he took a direct hit on his knee, which is why he was hurt. I'm reading this off of numberFire.
With that,
I
think that's it.
Yeah, so I would say like the
lowest
mid-range.
The lowest we can probably go with confidence is Mostert.
Yes, with confidence, yes. Because like you could justify Carter at 66, but I don't really want to do that. Mostert is someone we'll talk about. Pierce, I think, is intriguing at 73. Kamara, Dalv, maybe. And then McCaffrey, I think. But there are some guys we like, just they're a little high salaried. Okay, let's go to wide receiver where Josh Reynolds is now $16,000. How did this happen? He keeps on increasing. Every time I refresh the page, it keeps on going up. That's weird.
The usual guys are up there. Hopkins is 79. I don't know if we actually mentioned that.
That's not bad. That's like
bad.
Cash game consideration, right? If you can get there. I don't know if I can get there, but like I like to.
So like Jalen Waddle 78 and Tyler Lockett 76. I know that I'm saying like I prefer the guy at the highest salary, but that's not like a conversation for me. That's easily Hopkins.
I agree. Firmly agree.
Debo at 73, I guess I should probably be into.
This is one we didn't talk about, but Chris Olave came back from his concussion to his old role again. 14 targets in that game. Obviously, partly because they were down, but like he looked good again. I think Chris Olave 69 is a cash game consideration as well.
Are we ever going to get Michael Thomas back?
I don't care, honestly, at this point. Like, I feel like we can kind of just use him. Like Olave was getting work before people got hurt. He's played well.
Yeah, Olave's close to a write down.
Pretty tough matchup for Jacoby Myers at 66. But like his workload's been good. I think he has a 27.6% target share in his full games this year. I'm not a huge Jacoby guy, but I'd rather use him than Josh Reynolds at 65.
Yeah. The 6,000 range is pretty bad.
It's awful. I think I want to skip it. I want to find someone in the 5,000 range I can justify. Like Rondale Moore, you mentioned his salary. I think it's 55, right?
Yeah.
I'd use him over the 5,000, the 6,000 guys in a heartbeat.
Drake London's down to 56.
The Colts alpha wide receiver, Alec Pierce, is 58. The one guy who's allowed to run downfield because Michael Pittman is not.
The Cowboys are not going to have to throw Michael Gallup's 58. His salary's probably going to go back down or like stay about the same. So that's interesting for week 9.
Yeah. Knowing what the state of the 6,000 range looks like, would that change your view on Marquise Godin at 56 at all or no?
Probably. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't want to play guys who I don't feel confident in.
Okay, how about this one?
George Pickens is 55.
That's what I was going to ask you. He's getting good work. He's converting on that good work. Like I know that Deontay Johnson has a lot of hollow targets, but I feel like Pickens in his hasn't. They haven't been hollow. They've actually been pretty juicy targets so far.
The issue that I'm already running into is this reminds me of, I think maybe it was the week 6 slate where there were just nothing at receiver.
Yeah.
And we figured out the right running backs and quarterbacks and tight ends, but it just felt so impossible to get receiver right, especially in the value range. What?
So I pulled while you were talking, I was looking something up. Because I agree that you're saying like we made a lot of mistakes as a result of that. I was pulling up Kenny Pickett's efficiency to each pass catcher. So average for a target, like just an attempt. If you had to guess like an average target net expected points per target, probably around 0.20 because you're taking out sacks.
Okay.
So about 0.20.
Is average for Pickett or like league average?
No. League average-ish.
Okay.
This is not anti Kenny Pickett, by the way.
It's not a stat that I use and Jim uses a lot. So.
Yeah. So reception or target net expected points per target. Chase Claypool's at negative 0.1. Makes sense. I mean, like he's, some interceptions there. Pat Freiermuth is 0.35. Deontay Johnson, negative 0.43. Negative 0.43. George Pickens, 0.72.
Seems good.
That's awesome. So Kenny Pickett's been very efficient when targeting George Pickens and not efficient when targeting anybody else other than Pat Freiermuth and Jalen Warren, apparently, for some reason. So, like, he's been good when going there, which to me says, like, I shouldn't assume that Pickens' role will expand, but it opens the possibility that his role will expand. And for $5,500, I can get behind that.
Yeah, I think Pickens is in that consideration set. I felt like Trent Sherfield was way more involved than he actually was. He had 3 targets for 44 yards. Felt like he just was kind of used a lot more.
More like Trent Sherfield. I wish we could use the Jets pass catchers because Garrett Wilson's 54. I can't.
Yeah.
I wish we could. I can't.
I feel the same way about Terrace Marshall. He's 52. It was very involved in terms of routes, but I can't bank on that.
Yep, I will not either. Rashid Shaheed scored a touchdown again, but it was not on a good roll, so don't chase that. Just want to make that clear. If there were no DK Metcalf, D. Eskridge is 5,000. I'm not sure what his route participation was. He's been banged up a lot. He hasn't done anything, so actually probably shouldn't even mention that. Disregard me.
Who, D. Eskridge?
Yeah.
44%, 45% snaps and routes. A name that jumped out was, who was it that I just saw? Oh, I think Greg Dortch came back to life a little bit. 52% route rate. Just the one target. But again, just we're scrounging here.
Well, I think that the takeaway at receiver is 6,000 range is dog butt.
Well, 5,000 is not good either.
It's not good, but it's better relative to salary, I think. Like
it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to be a lot harder to play Jalen Hurts. Correct. If we want to spend up at running back and up at receiver. I know we can switch over to tight end, but
how would you feel about Rondale Moore if you pronounce his name the way like Dale, like Pitbull, like Dale, Rondale Moore? How would you feel about him then? Because I'd feel pretty good.
I don't understand the question, and I won't respond to it.
Fair enough. Tight end. Taysom Hill is the second highest salary tight end at $6,500. Nice. Hawkinson is 63. I feel like if there's no Amon-Ra St. Brown, I might want to try to get there.
I'm just doing something real quick.
Oh, no. That can't be good. Oh,
I'm just picking a random defense here.
Here's one. Dallas Goedert, 59. He's had good yardage upside. It's a situation where they might not have to throw very much at all, but like I don't know how much they'll need to throw for him to be a solid option at 59. I think that's actually pretty intriguing.
All right, so just to wrap your head around next week, if you play Jalen Hurts, which obviously we want to, but let's just say we play Jalen Hurts, McCaffrey, Kamara, and Mostert. So like still getting CMC, but also taking some value, and then like a $3,800 defense. We need 3 receivers and a tight end, and we have $5,975 left.
Yikes.
So I think it's going to be really hard to play Jalen Hurts in a ton of lineups without tying all of those to extreme value at receiver.
Yeah.
and tight end. So that's scary. I just wanted that for the context of tight end, because even 59 might be a bit much if we really need to get back up for receiver.
Yeah.
But I do like Goddard. That's a good call.
Goddard at 59 is pretty fun. Mike Gesicki had 7 targets again this week. And I think that was kind of noteworthy because Durham Smythe is actually active this time. Gesicki's snap rate was 61%, I believe. Route rate 64-ish percent. I think I looked at it this morning, but I forgot. Don't think that's good enough for me to get him at 54, but like he's less dusty now than he was.
Yeah, good game.
Juwan Johnson, 52. If Adam Troutman were to sit again, just 5 targets, but was pretty productive on those targets. I wouldn't be enthusiastic, but you know,
Well,
isn't that like a Taylor Swift lyric? Like, if you look like my next mistake or something like that, or something. I don't know. Anyway,
I don't know.
Irv Smith is $5,000, and he has not had more than 42 yards this year, so he is not a gym guy. However, looking like my next mistake.
Well, Tyler Conklin, 6 targets, 22 yards this week, so he's 48.
6 targets was probably a 70% target share for them. Foster Moreau was 5,000.
I thought it was Morrow, but you would know better than I would, Brad. I try to pronounce it Morrow because I thought that's what the announcers were saying yesterday.
You keep looking at tight end, so now I'm gonna look this up.
Okay. Gosh, Jim's leaving me with a lot to talk about here, and by a lot I mean not a whole lot to talk about. Is it hard to tell?
Okay. So apparently there's a Twitter clip of Dan Orlovsky saying it on the Pat McAfee show from July of this year, but I can't listen to it because I'm recording your audio on my computer, so I can't listen to it. So we'll report back on the pronunciation of
I assumed you knew off the top of your head, and you said something differently than I did.
I thought I did too, but I don't.
But we'll do the research. We'll come back on Thursday with some answers.
We're sorry we let you all down. Tommy make the defense tremble 47 on his 1 target this past week. Dropped him in the Dynasty League, and someone picked him up this week. Oh, Jelani Woods about to get a huge role expansion for the Colts. 1 target. Or was it 2? 2 targets. Oh, buddy. Yeah.
There's nothing. So we're gonna need a tight end in the 5,000 range.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get up to like Goddard, or if we're stacking it,
or if we're not using Hurts, we can just use Hawkinson.
Maybe. Yeah. But I'm saying there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle. Again, it's not as obvious as I thought it might have been.
Zeke, rest up.
Yeah,
go,
that'd be nice.
Take a load off, Sally. Sit down for a week. Go to Mexico again, just hang out. Let us have this one. We need some joys in our life after this past week. Just let us have that. Okay, note to future me. I think that we have some guys we can feel okay about, and that's encouraging, but it's going to be a tough week once again, based on the initial read at least.
I think the real key is going to be determining quarterback and seeing if we can predict an upside game, which is obvious, but we usually trust the predictability of the upside with someone like a Jalen Hurts. If he doesn't have to go all out, and we can match upside, we still need to hit someone who puts up like 24 FanDuel points in the 7,000 range.
Or just use Kyler and pray that he doesn't Kyler again.
Yeah.
They scored like 40 points. I know they had a couple of defensive touchdowns, but they scored like 40 points. He had 17 FanDuel points. What a stupid team. Let Kyler be quarterback. He's played a lot of Madden. He'll throw it deep. He'll run 4 verts. Just let Kyler be the play caller, head coach. I know he wants to be. They're yelling, so just let him do it.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah. Note to future me for me is to dig hard into the 5,000 range receivers and see if there's anything we can bank on. I think Pickens we can bank on, but
I wouldn't
What?
put him there.
I think we can feel pretty good about him, honestly.
I think we can feel good, but I don't think we can bank on it. Those are two different things to me.
Depends on how you define bank on.
Right.
I can bank on the fact that he has a path to upside.
Oh,
and that's not
sure.
true for most guys in the 5,000 range.
Yeah.
I can bank on that. And I don't need to question that. But are there other guys in the 5,000 range who have a path to upside? And what's the odds they hit that upside? I think that's the range I need to focus on most this week is the 5,000 range at receiver and see what we're going to find down there.
I agree with that. That's again, it's all connected this week. It's all connected always. But like, if we don't find out with the receivers, then we got to spend down at quarterback a bit, possibly even running back to the point where we don't get back up into the 8,000 range, which feels a little scary, but lots to go over.
Yeah,
it's always fun, Jim. It's always fun.
Is it? It is. Just kidding. It definitely is. Okay, we'll talk once again on Thursday to preview the Week 8 main slate. You can get that by subscribing to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We'll also be live on the FanDuel YouTube page at 10 a.m. Thursday. Hello, YouTube. Thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate all of you as always. We're live every Monday and Thursday on YouTube at 10 a.m. Eastern on the FanDuel YouTube page. Subscribe there, but also subscribe to the numberFire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed. Brandon, if people have questions for you on Twitter, where can they find you there?
I'm on Twitter at Gadula13, GDULA13.
And I am on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. You can also follow the FanDuel Podcast Network at FanDuel Podcasts. Big thank you to everyone for tuning in for this week. Good luck to you with your Monday Night Football DFS lineup for the Bears and the Patriots. We'll talk to you once again Thursday to preview week number 8. This has been the Heat Check Fantasy Podcast powered by numberFire.